Hello and welcome to another off-the-shelf board game review. Today we're going to look at Lords of Waterdeep. Lords of Waterdeep is a worker placement game for 2 to 5 players, ages 12 and up. It's published by Wizards of the Coast and designed by Peter Lee and Rodney Thompson. There's an expansion scheduled to be released later this year that is going to raise the player count to 6 players. In Lords of Waterdeep, each player is going to take control of one of the secret Lords of Waterdeep, and since it's secret, nobody gets to know which Lord you're actually playing. While you're playing, you're going to use your agents to help you gain money, hire adventurers, in an effort to complete quests to score points and win the game. Your agents can also be used to help you play intrigues on your opponents, which is going to make their lives a little more difficult. Or your agents can also be used to help you gain control of buildings. Lords of Waterdeep is a score-based game with secret scoring involved. At the end of the game, all the scores are going to be added up, and then the secret scoring is going to be added additionally, and whoever has the highest score at the end of the game is going to be declared the winner. Before I take a moment to explain to you how to play Lords of Waterdeep, I want to take a few moments to show you the quality of the components you're getting. Lords of Waterdeep comes with probably one of the best board game inserts I've ever seen with the game. It's designed well enough that you can literally take the box, stand it up on its side, lay it flat, stand over, flip it, spin it around, and pretty much no matter what you do, the box and the game components are going to be pretty much where you left them when you closed the game up last time. Which for me I find very impressive. It stores all the components very, very well. Minimal shuffling. I just lost a couple cardboard, but everything else is pretty much still in place. The cards are still in place. Wooden cubes are still in place. Everything's pretty much where you had it. To me, I wanted to say that's a fantastic board game insert. Extremely well designed, and I just want to say I'd like to see more products come out with very nice board game inserts like this one. Lords of Waterdeep retails for $50. For that $50, you're actually getting quite a few very nice, good quality components. Starting with the rulebook is very well designed. Has a lot of artwork in it, which is very nice, but the best thing I like about this, and I would like a lot more rulebooks to do this, is there's a very nice rules reference on the back. So if you put the game away, it's very nice. You can pull out in the future. It's a very quick rules reference. Tells you how to do a quick setup, sequence of play, final scoring. If you know how to play the game, you can pretty much just use this back page and you can just keep playing, never have to reference the rules ever again. The rulebook is really well written and designed. It does have a little storage diagram in the back for you when you're ready to set up the game when you first get it. There's a nice glossary. It does take the time to go through and explain all the components for the game, adding a little bit of fluff, and also breaks down all the houses, and I'll explain what that means when I describe how the game works, but just know that they did take some time to break them down, so the symbology used on them is very easy to understand, which is very, very nice. There is a lot of artwork in the rulebook. Not much of a large rulebook. The whole rulebook is only about 15 pages. Does a great job of describing how to play the rules, breaks everything down very, very well. A very good job done on the rulebook itself. The components are wooden. The meeples are made out of wood. The cubes are also made out of wood. They're not plastic. Again, I know some games do come with plastic components. This is actually all wooden components, and they are very, very nice. There's very good cardstock used for the cardstock components. Very thick, very durable, very nice. The only components that I semi-wishy-washy on are the cards. Now the cards themselves, they actually have some very nice artwork on them, which I like the artwork. They have about 5, maybe 6 artists for the entire set. And the artwork is very nice. Typical Dungeons and Dragons, Wizards of the Coast fantasy artwork, but the artwork's very nice on it. The cards themselves, though, are kind of a little bit on the thinner side. They're very bendy, a little bit thinner cardstock. Now it's not terrible. I've seen much worse in games before with the cardstock, so it's not terrible, but again, I have actually seen better. There is a very nice laminate they use for the cards, though, and they will last a long time. It kind of gives them almost a rubbery, bendy feel, and this game's been played quite a bit, and you see that there's not much wear and tear on these cards. Just know that they are a little bit on the thinner side. Would have liked to have seen them be thicker, but at least the laminate they use is actually really good quality. Again, lots of wooden components. They're really nicely made. They're large components. Nice. Game also has some cardboard for the buildings. Again, large, thick cardboard stock. Very thick, gonna last a while. Overall, the components for the game are actually very good. For $50, you're getting a fantastic insert. You're getting some very good cardboard. The components are made out of wood. The only thing I would start slightly not excited about was the thickness of the cards, but again, the laminate is very good. Really good quality on that, and the game does come with a really nice board. Haven't seen any signs of warping on the board yet. It's lasted a long time, and it's a typical fold-out board with lots of a nice large board. Is very well designed. Overall component quality for the game for $50 is actually really fantastic. Before I explain to you how to play Lords of Waterdeep, I'm going to take a few moments to go over all the game's components and show you how they're used in the game. I'm going to start off with the board because that is pretty much the main component for the game. All the players are going to be playing on the board. On the board, you're going to notice there's a couple different slots. The main thing to understand is that in Lords of Waterdeep, you're going to be sending out your agents, and every player gets a certain amount of agents depending on how many players are actually playing the game. You're going to take your agents and you put them on various locations on the board. Once an agent has been placed in that location on the board, they're either going to give you a resource, or they're going to allow you to draw more cards, or they're going to allow you to play cards and other players. And all the spaces on the board where you can put an agent are marked. So you'll see these little symbols right here that actually pretty much looks like your wooden meeple. If you place your agent on one of those locations, you gain that resource. So if I put one agent here, I would gain one white cube. Now the game uses cubes, and the cubes are supposed to be representative of actually adventurers that you're hiring. So white cubes are clerics, purple cubes are wizards, orange cubes are warriors, and black cubes are rogues. And you're going to be using your agents to help you hire the adventurers to complete the quest to score the points to win the game. So players are going to simply place their agents on the board at the locations and gain those resources throughout the game. You'll notice around the outer edge of the board there's a scoring track, and every player is going to start with 0. It is very highly possible that you're going to score more than 100 points, and if you do, the game does come with a little cardboard token in your player's color. Simply flip it over to signify that you've gotten 100. I've never seen a 200-point game, but I have seen a game go up to 165 points for one player before, so that's how you're going to score higher points. Each player is going to get a Lord of Waterdeep card. Now the Lord's cards are simply just allow each player to have a secret scoring condition. They're going to have a little bit of artwork on them, and on the bottom is going to be some text telling you what this player needs to do to score extra points at the end of the game. Your Lord card is hidden from all the other players throughout the entire game, so no other players, unless they use some good deductive reasoning, should know which Lord you're actually playing. Next there are the quest cards. There's 5 different quest cards in the game. There are Skullduggery quests, Warfare quests, Commerce quests, Piety quests, and Arcana quests. And basically the way these are designed is there's going to be some thematic text at the top of them. It's going to tell you what kind of resources you need to complete this quest, and then it's going to describe what is the reward you receive when you complete this kind of quest. There's also an additional kind of quest on top of these called plot quests. Normally a quest, when you complete it, it is simply put in your scoring pile, and at the end of the game you're going to add it to your score. If you have the Lord who requires one of those quests to be completed, you'll get extra points, I should say. The other kind of quest card is going to be called a plot quest. Now a plot quest will say right on the bottom right here, plot quest, and this quest stays in play permanently until the end of the game and gives you extra benefits. These benefits are listed right down here along with the reward. Next we have our Intrigue cards. Intrigue cards allow the players to interact with each other. There's 3 different kinds of Intrigue cards. There are attack Intrigue cards, and they say attack right there. There are utility Intrigue cards, and then there are the mandatory quest Intrigue cards. That says mandatory quests at the top. Mandatory quests are cards that you play on an opponent, and basically what it does is it prevents your opponents from completing any quests that they may have and scoring points for those cards until they complete this mandatory quest, and these quests cause them to discard their resources, and they're generally not worth it, generally only scoring 2 points, when some of the really good quests from the quest cards can score up to 25 points. Next you have your attack cards, and these allow you to interact with the other players and generally make their life just a little bit more difficult. For example, this one allows you to take resources from an opponent directly out of their resource bank and put them in your own resource bank. And in this game, the resource bank is called your inn. Finally, there are utility cards, which are generally just give a boon. Sometimes they'll interact with other players, but they're generally boon cards to help out the players. Next, we have buildings. Buildings are purchased throughout the game and give players extra spaces to put their agents and gain extra resources throughout the game. Buildings have a cost to bring into play. For example, this one costs 3 gold to purchase and bring into play, and whoever purchases the building becomes the owner of that building throughout the rest of the game. When a player places their agent on that building, they get the resources that they get for visiting that building. And if you are the person who owns this building, but it wasn't you who placed an agent there, the owner gets an additional benefit. Now, if you are the owner of this building and you place your own agent there, you do not get the owner benefit. You only get the owner benefit if one of your opponents places their agents on those spaces, making them beneficial for you to try to get your opponents to try to use your spaces more for the free resources. Once a building is in purchase, it's simply added to the game board and becomes an additional space for agents to be placed. Finally, each player is going to get an inn. Each player has one of their very own inn cards. I didn't mention this earlier, but these actually have some very nice artwork on them. And the way it's going to work is you're simply going to place your agents up here to let you know which agents you have available to place on the board. Your extra adventurers that you've hired are placed in your tavern. Completed quests are placed down here, and your lord is kept down here upside down for none of the other players to witness and see who that is. Keep all your active quests over here on the side, and all your completed plot quests will be kept over here to remind you what benefits they're giving you throughout the game. Lords of Waterdeep is pretty quick and simple to set up. I'm going to show you how to set up the game for 5 players. Varying player counts are going to look slightly different, so again, this is how you set up for a 5-player game. You're going to start off by putting 3 victory point tokens on each one of the round trackers. And this helps you track which round of the game you're currently in. The game does play for 8 rounds. At the end of the 8th round, the scores are going to be tallied up and the victor is going to be determined. Each player will place an agent in their color on the agent track at space for the round number 5. That's a reminder that at the start of round number 5, each player is going to get an additional agent to add to their pool. You'll notice there's a spot for a 6th agent. That's not going to be used until the expansion is released next, or actually I'm told at the end of this year, which will allow this game to go up to 6 players. Each player will take a tavern in the color of the agent that they have chosen. And then each player is going to be randomly given one of the Lords of Waterdeep. Players are free to look at their own lord at any time, but do not show your opponents which lord you've been given. Simply place your lord underneath your tavern. And again, in a 5-player game, slightly different than other play counts, in a 5-player game, each player is going to start with 2 agents, which is going to start in your agent pool. Place your score tracker on the score track. Each player then gets 2 quest cards. And then the beginning quest board is filled up with 4 quest cards for each. Each player will then get 2 intrigue cards. And the rest of the deck is shuffled and placed on the board. Then each player is going to get an amount of money based on their player order. Player 1 will start with 4 gold, player 2 starts with 5 gold, and on each player gets 1 more gold than the prior player up to the player count. Players will then get tokens to help them signify which buildings they own. 3 buildings will start in play that are available for purchase. And then the first player takes the first player token, and you are now ready to begin playing. Lords of Waterdeep is played over rounds. Each round starts with the round marker putting 1 victory point token on each building that's currently still in play. That does mean as the rounds go by, if buildings are not purchased, they're going to continue to become more valuable in the point standings. Once a building has been purchased, it is added to the board, and the next building is put in to take its place. On the next turn, the victory point tokens are going to continue to pile up on the buildings, making these buildings extremely valuable, and this one a little bit less valuable, but as rounds go by, the buildings will continue to get value. On a player's turn, they're going to take turns placing agents on the board, gaining the resources for placing their agents on the board, and if you place an agent on the board, you're free to complete a quest. To complete the quest, simply hand in the resources, score the points, and gain any other benefit that that quest may give you. Once all players are done placing all their agents on the board and gaining all the resources from placing their agents, that turn is over and a new round begins. At the end of the game, points are going to be scored up. Each player will reveal whichever lord they are playing for this game. They will score their extra points for completing extra quests based on their lord, and whoever has the highest point score is declared the winner. Now that I've shown you how to play Lords of Waterdeep, I'm going to take a few minutes to show you how a sample game round will actually play out. I'm going to start with the blue player. It's the start of round number 2. It's a 5-player game. You start the round with placing the victory point tokens on the buildings to signify it's the start of round 2. Blue is going to take one of his agents, place it on the Grinning Lion Tavern, which is going to gain him 2 rogues to add to his tavern. Since he placed an agent, he is now able to try to complete a quest. He's going to complete a warfare quest called Defeat the Uprising from Undermount. It requires 1 cleric, 3 warriors, 1 rogue, and 2 gold. So we spend 3 warriors, the 1 cleric, and 1 rogue, leaving him with 1 rogue left behind, plus 2 gold. And he has now completed this quest. It's going to score him 11 points, so he's going to go from 15 to 16 points. He's also going to get 2 warriors back. They're going to go inside his tavern. This card is going to go in the completed quest pile face down, and blue's turn is now over. Black player is going to place a agent in Waterdeep Harbor, which is going to allow him to play an intrigue card. He's going to play an intrigue card called Recruit Spies. Recruit Spies says take 2 rogues from the supply and add them to your tavern. And it also says that other players can give you 1 rogue to score 3 points. Green is going to take this opportunity to give black 1 rogue, and green is going to score 3 points for doing so. It's now red's turn. Red is going to place one of his agents in the Cliffwatch Inn, which is going to either allow him to gain a quest card and 2 gold, a quest and an intrigue, or he can reset the quest pile. We're going to decide to take 1 quest card, which is going to be added to red's quest pile. Quest is immediately replaced, and red gains 2 gold. Now red just gained a quest that requires 2 wizards and 1 cleric to complete. Red just happens to have 2 wizards and 1 cleric, so he's going to go ahead and complete that quest now. Reward for that quest is he gains 8 points. And he's going to gain 1 warrior. And he's going to get his 2 gold back. This goes in red's completed quest pile, and now it's yellow's turn. Yellow's going to place one of his agents on the Field of Triumph, which is going to give him 2 warriors. 2 warriors is all that they need to complete this quest, that's Piety quest, which is called Eliminate the Vampire Coven. It requires 2 clerics, 2 warriors, and 1 rogue, and the reward is going to be 11 points. And they also gain 4 gold. This goes in yellow's completed quest pile, and it's now green's turn. Green is going to decide to purchase a building. Green is going to purchase this building right here and put it in one of the building slots. It does not matter which building slot you place it in. They're all the same, but just note that once all these building slots are filled, you cannot purchase or build any more buildings anymore. The vacated building slot is going to be immediately filled. Green is going to gain 2 victory points for the 2 victory points that were on the building already, putting green at 5 victory points. And green is also going to spend the 4 gold it costs to purchase that building. A control marker is going to be put on the building to signify that green now controls this building. And if anybody places an agent on that building, they get 2 adventurers of any kind, and the owner has the potential to gain 1 adventure of any kind. We now go back to blue. Blue's going to place one of his agents here. He's going to take 2 purples, which is 2 wizards, agents, add them to his tavern. And green, controlling that building, is going to take 1 priest. It's now time for black to go. Black decides that they want to be the new first player. They are now going to gain control of the first player token, and they're also going to gain an intrigue card. Red is going to place on the Blackstaff tower, gaining 1 purple, adding that to their tavern. Yellow decides that they don't like any of the quests that are currently in the quest pile, so they're going to get rid of all the quests. That'll all go on the quest discard, and the quest pile is going to be refilled. Finally, green gets to go. And green decides that they need a little bit of money, so they're going to place there. They're going to gain 4 money. Now they already have some money, so I'm going to grab a 5 and put a 1 back in place for a total gain of 4. Now all the players have placed their agents, and all agents in Waterdeep Harbor get to be replaced. Black is going to take their agent, replace him over into Plinth, gaining 1 cleric. And the round is now over. You're now ready to begin round 3, which will start with the points being placed on the buildings after all the agents are removed from the board and returned to each player's tavern, their agent pool, to start the new round. This goes on for 8 rounds, and then whoever has the highest score is the winner. Lords of Waterdeep lists as a game for ages 12 and up, plays 2 to 5 players, making it a very good family game based on just the numbers and based on the age. There is some things making the game actually pretty easy to understand for a younger child. An 8-year-old or a 9-year-old can pretty much understand the concept of the game. It's basically place an agent somewhere on the board, gain a resource, put a quest in play, score points. Basic addition, basic math, gain resources, put resources back in the box. Uses a little bit of planning, so that's going to be a little bit more challenging for the younger players. So the gameplay itself isn't really the reason why it has a 12 plus suggested age. It's more going to be an issue with the artwork. Now the artwork in the game is really well done, but it's very high fantasy. You're going to see images such as the Beholder, which might be a little bit, something you don't want the younger kids to see. Again, it's really good artwork, but it's very high fantasy. It's not cartoony at all. It's the stuff that, that's from traditional role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons, which is the world this board game is based on. The vampire card shows a vampire with bloody fangs, which may be images that you don't want the younger kids to see. So aside from the imagery in the game is extremely family friendly. You just may want to just consider what images your children are going to be looking at if you want them to play the game. Difficulty wise, 8, 9, 10-year-old perfectly able to understand how to play the game. Imagery wise, if you're uncomfortable with your kids seeing those kind of images, you can either pull those cards out, which is pretty simple because honestly there's probably less than 10 cards that have graphic images. Most of them are just going to be the typical high fantasy stuff, such as a dwarf wielding a weapon. Looks like a guard guarding a staircase in a tower. Somebody in a market recruiting. Again, not too bad with imagery, but again, there's I'd say probably about a dozen cards that are going to have the images that are going to be fairly questionable for younger viewers. Again, Lords of Waterdeep I think is a fantastic family game. It's got a great player count, 2 to 5 players. It doesn't take very long to play. A good game is going to take anywhere from about 45 minutes to an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes tops, and that's even for a 5-player game. 2-player game you can probably get done in about 45 minutes. 5-player game about an hour and 15 to an hour and 20. While I think Lords of Waterdeep is a phenomenal game at any player count, 2 to 5 players, it does play differently depending on the amount of players. A lot of the intrigue cards are based on abilities to help interact with other players. For instance, one of the cards I showed you where you gain 2 rogues and each additional player had the potential to give you a rogue to score 3 additional points. In a 2-player game, cards like that aren't going to be quite as powerful because you're going to have less opponents making those decisions, and making those cards kind of have a reduced effect. Making a 2-player game play almost more of, I don't want to say mathematical because it's definitely not mathematical. There's still some variety in the game, and still some random scoring through the secret scoring and everything like that, but the 2-player game does feel a lot different. I will play Lords of Waterdeep with 2 players, but I think it plays best with 4 or 5 players. Again, don't get me wrong, I enjoy the game as a 2-player game, but I do insist it plays differently. I love the intrigue cards. They're one of the things I think are best. I'm not a huge fan of worker placement games, but I really do enjoy Lords of Waterdeep, and the intrigue cards are one of the reasons why I do enjoy the game so much. And I have noticed when I play with only 2 players that the intrigue cards don't get as much play, and when they are played, you see that some of them just are not as powerful as they could be in a 5-player game. Again, great for 2 to 5 players, going to be best with 4 or 5 players. Before I give you my final overview and review of Lords of Waterdeep, I wanted to throw a mention out to a user over at BoardGameGeek.com. His handle is Relax, R-E-L-A-X. His name is Danny Perello, and I really hope I pronounced that right. It's P-E-R-E-L-L-O. Now what Danny has done is create what are called D&D Deeples, and they're basically little meeples that take the place of the cubes in the game. And I'll add some images to the video so you can see what they look like. I don't own them. I'd like to purchase them, but I don't own them yet. And basically, instead of just white cubes that you have for the clerics, he actually has some little wooden cubes in the shape of clerics. Instead of little orange cubes, he actually has orange meeples that are in the shape of a little warrior. Same thing for the warriors, same thing for the sorcerers. I think they're $30 painted, and there's enough in there to replace all the wooden cubes that come with the base game. If you're looking to add a little bit of flavor to the game, kind of move away from the cube aspect of the game, you want a little bit more, I don't want to say theme because that's definitely not what it adds, but it just adds a little more eye candy. You may want to go check out the D&D Deeples over at BoardGameGeek.com. My final thoughts on Lords of Waterdeep. Now, I'm going to preface this by saying I am not a huge worker placement player. I don't own a lot of worker placement games. I have played some very good ones, but I don't own a lot of them because generally worker placement games are not my favorite type of game. I like strategy games, I like war games, I like sci-fi games, I really enjoy miniature games, and I enjoy my Ameritrash too, but when it comes to worker placement games, while I do enjoy some of them, I don't own a lot and I don't get them to the table that often. Having said that, I love Lords of Waterdeep as a worker placement game because they've done a great job injecting the theme into this game, creating a fast-playing worker placement game that is very quick to teach, very easy to understand, but it still offers a lot of strategy in my opinion, and includes a lot of great theme. Now for me, I grew up playing Dungeons and Dragons, and a lot of the cards and everything like that really adds to the theme. I like the names of the quest, I like the artwork for the game, I like the lords themselves. I mean, I grew up reading novels with these people inside them, and being able to play these lords, it's kind of a nice touch. They did a great job of adding enough theme to the game, kind of a little bit of nostalgia, and managed to blend that in with a fantastically well-balanced worker placement game that is done well without the theme getting in the way. There's quests to bring out the fantasy aspect of it. Granted, the cubes are just cubes, but you think instead of orange cube you have a warrior, instead of black cube you have your rogue, and even the locations are fit the theme very, very well. You have your Field of Triumph, which was a battle arena where they had the gladiatorial type stuff. You had Blackstaff Tower, which if you read the books, Coven Blackstaff, he was one of the great Lords of Waterdeep, a very powerful wizard. Again, they just did a great job adding to the theme, and that for me is one of the best things I like about the game. It's nice that on top of this great theme, there's actually a great game, very well designed, thrown in there on top. I like that there's a lot of variety to the game. The buildings will be added to the game. There's only enough spots for 9 buildings, sorry. but you'll notice that there are a lot of buildings. It's actually possible to play 2 or 3 games without actually seeing all the buildings, and there's enough buildings to make sure that the more you play, the more variety you're going to get with all the buildings. There's also quite a few quest cards that come with the game. Again, you're probably not going to see all the quests on your first playthrough. And I also like the Intrigue cards, which allow the players to interact with each other. Lords of Waterdeep is designed to be a lighter Euro-style game, and that's probably what people are going to find to be its most polarizing aspect. This game isn't designed to reinvent the wheel. It was designed to bring the traditional Eurogamer to a wider audience. Die-hard Eurogamers looking for the next deep game are going to be left scratching their heads at the fuss that people are making, and then probably pull Kalis off the shelf, which is an older game, but it's been out for a long time and it's got its fans. To me, Lords of Waterdeep is a gateway Euro game that I can pull off and enjoy with gamers and non-Euro gamers alike. I like to call it pretty much a Ticket to Ride style game for Euro gamers. There is some minor luck to the game, whether it is buildings that don't favor your need to get quests, or intrigue cards that really don't help you, but honestly, good strategy will compensate for any minor bad luck that the game can toss your way. Finally, the game can have a strong aspect of screwing your neighbor over. Some people may not enjoy that aspect of gameplay, but some people do enjoy it. I'm one of those kind of people who actually enjoy games where you can actually interact with opponents and help mess up their strategies a little bit. There's multiple ways to do that, whether it's by placing an agent in a location that you know your opponents are watching or wanting, or by purchasing a building that you know your opponents are really going to need that provides resources that you need. The board can possibly become pretty crowded after a while, and if you're able to, through strategy and just through good deductive reasoning, able to figure out which Lord of Waterdeep your opponents are playing, you can pretty much, if you're wanting to, you can pretty much concentrate on screwing them over, preventing them from getting the resources they need and preventing them from getting the extra scored points at the end of the game. Now, if that's an aspect of a game that you are not going to like or that you will find very frustrating, you may want to consider that before you look into Lords of Waterdeep. All in all, I think Lords of Waterdeep is a great, lighter, Euro-style game, and I think it's definitely one that everybody should check out and at least play once. This has been Off the Shelf Board Game Review. Thank you for watching.